Latest reports show that most San Francisco homeowners are selling at a massive loss. And this time, we're not just looping in San Francisco, but the rest of the Bay Area, which is pretty surprising considering that a lot of parts of the Bay Area, they're still pretty expensive because, Silicon Valley, places like Cupertino, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, they're still home to guys like Google, Apple, and Oracle, these massive corporations. And you're telling me 1 in 7 homes in the entire Bay Area region is selling for a loss? Because this is by far one of the worst places to buy real estate, not just in the country right now, but the entire world. Like, people talk about how places like, London isn't doing so good, places like Hong Kong isn't doing so good, or a place like Melbourne. But a lot of those places are still having rising home values despite extremely bubbly prices. But San Francisco, the bubble has popped and it's still going straight down, which is an absurd thing to see, considering this is our biggest tech city and one of the biggest in the world. So look at this, more than 3% of US homes sold between August and October are at a loss, which is insane. And Redfin says medium loss was around $40,000. That's pretty painful considering a lot of these homes are selling for like 400, 500,000, and then you knock away a decent chunk of that. What about the Bay Area? Roughly 1 in 7, or almost 15% of all Bay Area homes sold from August to October is at a loss. The median loss is enormous, 3 times the national average at $122,000 per Redfin report. And this report really isn't that unrealistic. I mean, if you look at some of these homes, like for example, this condo right here, it seems pretty normal, right? It's like a townhouse unit type condo. You have it at 2 bed, 1 bath, 670 square feet selling for $500K. I'm sure prices were already cut to get down to $500K. And before the pandemic, you could not find one of these condos cheaper than like 800 grand for a 1 bedroom in a decent area. Like this condo here, somewhat okay place to live. The location's all right. Pretty good building too. It's very quiet. 650, 1 bed, 1 bath, almost 700 square feet of space, and you get a balcony. I know for all the Midwestern guys out there, you probably think this is like a cage, but in fact, this is a pretty good size for a 1 bed condo. And considering it's in a massive city like San Francisco, 650 is pretty cheap, but nobody's paying 650. It's been on the market for a very long time. I think they're going to have to cut this below 500K if they want to get anyone buying. And don't even get me towards the luxury listings. Not a single person's buying these condos, these massive mega mansions in San Francisco. All the rich people have already left. So people who have money to splurge on a unit over $10 million, they don't exist anymore in the Bay Area. Many of these guys are going to places like Vegas, Miami, even Manhattan still has a lot of high-end luxury buyers because it's still an international city. In Manhattan and New York City in general, despite its problems, some places in New York are still very nice. Whereas San Francisco, you no longer get the tech vibe anymore. So yes, Bay Area homes are selling for some crazy losses. I've never seen these losses in a very long time. And this is by far one of the highest proportions I've seen around the world. And I know what you're saying is, oh, it's not that bad. It's going to recover pretty soon. I don't really think so. People have been talking about a Bay Area home recovery for like a couple years now. And every single quarter, prices just get lower and lower and lower. And then don't even get me started on the real estate market. It is absolutely horrendous. We're seeing buildings being leased out for pennies on the dollar. Like this unit here in a pretty good area, pretty good building, $45 a square feet per year. It used to be over $100 for an area like this. It's in the Chinatown region. It's a very good office district. You're also right next to one of the more iconic buildings in San Francisco. So these offices in this stored area should be commanding some pretty insanely high prices. Like, look at this building here, right next to a Salesforce Tower, $49 a square feet per year. You would not find below $120 per square feet per year before the pandemic. Locations like the Mission Street, like 300 Mission, these high-end, well-known office buildings, you would never find them below like 120 before the pandemic. Now you're finding these everywhere. It's like a everyday find. You find these cheap rentals despite in great areas. And yes, residential real estate, 1 in 7, is being sold for fat losses. And another thing to keep in mind is the other few listings, like the 6 and 7. You might think 6 out of the 7 homes are still selling for a fat profit, but not really. Many of the guys who bought property in the Bay Area bought it decades ago. So many of them are just selling it for like a very, very small gain, which if you added inflation and the amount of HOA and property tax they paid over the past few decades, they're still at a massive loss. Whereas many areas around the world, if you bought residential real estate like several years ago or a couple decades ago, you're up like 3 to 4x. Some places like Shanghai, if you looked at some of the real estate prices, you're up like 15x if you bought it in the early 2000s, which is absolutely wild to see. But San Francisco literally selling buildings for 50% off, despite people buying these like 2 decades ago. So half off, another San Francisco office trades for a 50% whopping discount. That's not normal. This is by far one of the scariest situations I've ever seen. Imagine paying money for a building in 2000, 2 decades ago for $120 million, and now you sell it for $60 million. Not only has inflation ate away at your profits, but the HOA, the tax, the home insurance, and then you sell it for 50% off, that is some pretty terrible returns. And this is what's happening in the Bay Area. You got small banks sweating all the time. In fact, banks are even asking companies to force employees to work at the offices just so they could justify their high valuation. But then once you start auctioning these buildings off, you start realizing, hold on a second, you're telling this enormous building in by far one of the best office districts in San Francisco sells for just $60 million bucks. $60 million bucks in some cities only get you a penthouse. But in San Francisco, apparently gets you a whole entire building, which is something I've never seen before. And then you head over towards the San Francisco-Oakland Bridge from San Francisco to Oakland. Oakland rents dropped 7.2%, the fastest anywhere in the U.S. for a simple reason. They built so many apartments. I don't know why they did this, but that's what happened. I think the 0% interest rates and the plots of land they secured back during the pandemic, they just recently finished wrapping up these projects. And lo and behold, nobody's in Oakland anymore. There's a massive population decline. You're seeing the rents drop 7.2% in just a mere months. And this is some scary stuff. Okay? When rents drop this much and when there's a lot of landlords offering you concessions, that means they're pretty down bad. And these buildings are probably mostly empty. We're seeing whole entire new buildings being built in San Jose. There's this building I should cover in a later video, but it's like brand new construction, and they're still trying to push people to rent out their 1 beds for $3,000, which nobody's taking it seriously. So we're having this really odd situation, guys. Real estate is no longer the fine investments before. In fact, if you buy one of these condos in Cali, it doesn't really matter. Like even San Diego is taking a fat loss, but like if you buy one of these in San Francisco, like you can't even sell these because nobody wants them. I mean, look at this new construction condo. It's already at its 10th price cut, and the latest one is 10 grand. This is a newly built low-rise, pretty decent area next to some of the bigger tech hubs. It's $740K. This was easily unit at $1 million. I remember selling them and seeing them at $1 million per 1 bedroom back a couple years ago, and now you already got a 25% off. I think it probably won't be sold unless they do like a 35% off. And the thing is, even if they make it cheaper, you just can't really find any more buyers. Most of the buyers aren't really on the market for a home in general, let alone one in the San Francisco Bay Area. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below, like, comment, subscribe for more.